Sharifah Zubaida Wafa, and I'll be presenting the introduction of environmental audit. Environmental audit means a periodic, systematic, documented, and objective evaluation to determine the compliance status to environmental regulatory requirements, the environmental management system, and the overall environmental risk of the premises. By imposing this requirement, the government is hoping to achieve their long-term goal, which is to achieve the sustainable development objective of the country. Environmental management system is a management tool that enables any size or kind of organization to identify and control the environmental impact of its activities, products, or services, continuously improve its environmental performance, and use a systematic approach to creating environmental goals and targets, implementing them, and demonstrating that they have been met. The four pillars of EMS. The first one is a written environmental policy. This is the first pillar of the EMS, and its objective is to secure organizational commitment for responsible environmental management to strive for continuous improvement in environmental issues, to prevent pollution, and also to comply with the relevant environmental legislation. Through this policy, an organization can conserve the environment as well as safeguard its financial returns from its investment. The second one is environmental performance indicators and goals. The second pillar shows the continuous organizational commitment to implement and take it into effect for the earlier environment policy. This is to transform the written policy into action. The third one is environment training program. The third pillar is to ensure that the employees have the right understandings and shared wisdom about environmental concerns. The training is to increase the knowledge of the environment for the employees. Number 4 is environmental audit. The last pillar is to ensure continuous environmental improvement within the organization. It will periodically evaluate and recommend solutions to the weakness within the environmental management program. Definition of environmental audit. The term audit comes from the finance industry. In general, auditing is a rigorous evaluation of methods and practices involving analysis, tests, and confirmation with the purpose of ensuring that they comply with legal requirements, corporate policies, and established practices. An environmental audit is an audit performed to ensure that the business is complying with the environmental examines the procedure of the business activities to determine the amount of pollution that will bring harm and injury to society. The data that the auditor compiled will be used to create or adjust the policy to ensure compliance. Environmental audits play a big role in sustainability as they will install strict policies to make sure that the business follow the proper regulation. The criteria of environmental audit. The environment auditors assist consumers, recommending that environmental auditors should have appropriate work experience and the criteria of the following. The first one is environmental science and technology. The second one is technical and environmental aspects of facility operations. The third one is relevant requirements of environmental laws, regulation, and related documents. The fourth one is environmental management system and standards against which audits may be performed. The last one is audit procedures, process, and techniques. Scope of environmental audit. Depending on the scope of the audit, it can target a single issue or a broad variety of issues. The size of the audit team, the amount of time invested, and the depth of the inquiry will all increase as the scope of the audit grows. Based on the management perceived demands, the scope of the audit might range from simple compliance testing to a more thorough review. This technique is used not just in company operation for environmental, health, and safety management, but also in product safety and quality management, as well as loss prevention. If the goal of auditing is to ensure that these broad categories are appropriately managed, then each of these specific issues must be thoroughly examined and resolved.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Farzana. I will continue the presentation by explaining the stages or steps in environmental audit. Let's look at the first step. First, we must schedule the audit. We must establish a schedule for the examinations. Usually, the first step always carried out by environmental management representative or manager. During prepare for an audit, the project coordinators should schedule the work in order to minimize disruptions and to record the details in their environmental management plans. Second, plan the audit. In this step, we need to establish and document the scope and reason for the evaluation of an area. The EMR must also appoint a qualified lead auditor or audit member if required. Next step is we must conduct the audit. All the audit members must meet and talk about the scope of the audit, the proposed agenda, and any project personnel that may need to contact. Fourth, we must develop an audit report or action plan. The audit team should prepare an environmental report based on all the evidence collected. The report should be forwarded to the contractor not later than 2 days after the end of the audit. Last step is audit follow-up. What it means here is the remaining contract items by the contractor will be followed up on the closing out by EMR. It also can be done separately or when the next event takes place and depends on how significant it is. Now, I will present type of environmental audit in manufacturing company. There are 5 types of it. The first one is operation site compliance audit. A company-specific operation sites will be examined to evaluate its ongoing environmental practices. The assessment is done based on government legislations and company environmental policies. The assessing process are related to the treatment, storage, disposal of hazardous and non-hazardous materials. Second is pollution prevention audit. In this type of audit, the auditor will find solution to reduce or to eliminate the waste of pollution due to the products. The audit may include a review of the success of management's previous pollution prevention initiative to identify opportunities for ongoing improvement in reducing harmful substance emission to the environment. Third, transactional environmental audit on asset transfer. A designated auditor will be measured any potential environmental risk associated with an asset transfer. This type of audit is very important to avoid the possibility of acquiring an environmental liability when an asset is acquired. Opinions or recommendation resulting from this audit is assumed as important information to the company before they proceed to decide on transferring or acquiring an asset. Next is product audit. A company must ensure that all of its products must comply with relevant governmental requirements. For example, comply with government rules that related to raw materials, chemical usage, and recycling regulations. Product audit may help a company enhance their consumer confidence in product safety and other environmental issues. Last but not least, environmental liability accrual audit. It is important to identify and disclose the presence of any liability accruals for all known environmental issues associated with a company. It is also a significant input for the company's top management. Moreover, the acknowledgement of these liabilities in the financial statement will also meet the requirements of the Securities Commission.
Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Nur Hafiza Atira and I'll be explaining on the impact of environmental audit towards internal audit profession from the perspective of advantages. There are 3 advantages, of course, that I would like to highlight in this topic. The first one is improve company transparency to stakeholders. Second, ensures compliance with the legislation. And third one is to increase employees' awareness of companies' environmental responsibility. So, we will begin with the first one, which is improve company transparency to stakeholders. Basically, the goals of environmental auditing are to protect the environment and reduce the risk of business activities. Internal auditors essentially assisted the business in becoming more sustainable while also opening up new marketing opportunities. This will help to build a good reputation and strengthen the company's image, as well as will prevent adverse reputation and ensure a positive prestige among the stakeholders such as bankers, potential investors, customers, suppliers, and shareholders. The next one is to ensure company comply with the legislation. Internal auditor must evaluate the result that they have obtained, and if it doesn't meet their satisfaction from the perspective of protocols, they should come up with a better suggestion and ideas such as to implement better environmental standards and policies. Internal auditors have to ensure that the operation of the company is compliant with the requirements and law of environmental as well as the guidelines set by the government. But if not, they must take any necessary corrective actions. By doing so, we can see that the action of regulation will be effectively reduced and can be effective in managing environmental risk and complying with relevant environmental legislation. Last but not least is increasing employee awareness of the company's environmental responsibility. An internal auditor is a professional hired by a company to provide independent assessments of financial and operational business activities, including corporate governance. They must make certain that businesses follow all applicable law and regulations, follow proper procedures, and run as effectively and efficiently. The development of this into an organization will raise environmental awareness among their employees within the company. Not least of all, environmental audits will enhance the awareness of the company's environmental responsibilities toward their employees.
Now, let us look at the negative impact of environmental audit towards internal audit profession. Firstly, environment audit requires a high commitment of resources to run the environment audit since it uses more time and attention to be implemented. Besides, it also will cause temporary disruption to the current activities while the audit is carried out. So, this is why this environmental audit is not suitable for small businesses that have limited financial resources since it can be very expensive to implement and time-consuming. Secondly, environmental audit can easily be manipulated by the company that do not have the intention to be environmentally responsible. This will punish the internal audit profession if the environmental audit performed contains bias due to the conflict of interest with the management. Besides, this also can happen due to a lot of pressure from the management if they fail to attempt a continuous improvement on environmental issues. When this happens, they will unable to make critical comments without fear of impact of his comments in his career in that organization in future. Thirdly, environmental audit also has the possibilities of errors due to lack of training and experience since environmental audit requires a lot of expertise. When they do not comply with the environmental laws and regulation correctly, it may lead to legal obligations toward the company. Moreover, there are insufficiency and inconsistency in the audit practice because of the different standards and requirements for environmental sustainability. So, this will give negative impacts with internal auditors since there are no clear laws and legislation.
So now we move to the first issue, which is shift in the focus of an environmental audit. So the focus of an environmental audit is changing from lagging indicators to more leading indicators. While lagging indicators focus on the past and leading indicators are concerned with the future. Lagging metrics are useful for understanding historical trends but not for forecasting. So in the past, environmental audit heavily concentrated on legal compliance. The audit objective and procedures were basically based on the government requirements, so several changes have been observed in the past decade. So most audits currently focus on sustainability and include a review of environmental management systems. So the environmental audit based on post-audit does not ensure that projects with a significant negative impact on the environmental are stopped. So next issue is big data or computerized audit. Big data audit has taken over and is now being utilized to educate people on environmental impact assessment. However, the increased use of technology brings with it several issues, ranging from cost to personnel because most supreme audit institutions in developing countries are financially unable to purchase and use high-tech software and systems, so they are unable to do so. Similarly, the institutions lack the necessary personnel to fully utilize these platforms. Auditors reported difficulties using data management software such as Avatar, Achilles, and Joscar in the survey conducted by the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment. The third issue will be interdisciplinary collaboration. The complex nature of environmental audits requires technical experts to assess regulatory compliance. Similarly, the current focus on auditing environmental systems, assessing risk exposure, and measuring environmental liabilities calls for multidisciplinary approach. However, there is no agreement on which discipline should be in charge of leading multidisciplinary teams. Being a large area with different areas of concern, environmental audit does call for an interdisciplinary approach, which is challenging as it requires more resources and a massive institutional engagement. So the last issue will be soft skills and competence among the environmental auditors. Skills in environmental social responsibility, ethics, and human rights, for example, have become key factors that characterize auditors' competency. Specialist skills and expertise in these areas are essential for environmental auditors to be multidisciplinary. The majority of incident auditors are under pressure to undertake environmental audits without further training. So it was recognized that many auditors are unfamiliar with the new requirements of ISO's high-level structure for management system standards, and that training would be beneficial. And there was a lack of understanding of company-specific difficulties such as sector knowledge and experience, as well as the relevant legislation.
The conclusion is environmental audit helps to make sure that organizations keep the environmental law and do not abuse their status by creating environmental hazard while doing business. Besides, internal auditors will assist the business in becoming more sustainable while also opening up new marketing opportunities. However, the supply chain and social and ethical issues are particularly difficult since they need a wide variety of skills that many environmental auditors lack. In order to improve this environmental audit, we recommend that the environmental audit should become other departments' responsibilities other than the internal auditor department, since the employees from other departments might have more knowledge in environmental matters.